In a world where hopium and common sense collide, starring the CryptoKeeper and BlockchainCrusader. Welcome to Debate Crypto. Question everything, trust nothing. It's your boys, CryptoKeeper and BlockchainCrusader, here with a special guest, the one and only, the legend, Gareth Soloway. Gareth, how you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing wonderfully well, man. Just hanging in there. And interestingly enough, half my family has COVID, so we're kind of just taking it day by day. But everyone's doing okay.
Well, that sucks. Hopefully, it doesn't affect your trading, because if it does, then we're gonna have issues with your family if it starts making your charts look a little different than they should. You know,
I'll make sure to let them know. Yeah, I'm sure my wife needs to hear that.
Pass along. Say, listen, Keeper, United States Marine. He don't play no games. Okay, so don't be messing up my charting. But no, so we're super excited to have Gareth on tonight. As you may or may not know, TA Thursday. A lot of times we have CVO on. We've been having Gareth on a whole bunch recently, and we really appreciate him coming on. We bring on our resident TA experts and tell us what's going on in the markets as it relates to technical analysis. So we're excited about that. Make sure you guys smash the likes. Follow Gareth. All his information is down below. He's got his private group and then also his YouTube down below the stream. So check that out. Jump into the Discord. If you didn't know, Miguel, pass the word along. What's happening? I heard there's a stimulus something or other going on, brother. What's going on with that?
Talking about the stimulus drop for Danger Close Alpha?
I may or may not be talking about that. Give me more. What's the info?
It's free. It's a stimulus drop. It's free. Definitely is going to be the foundational layer for the Danger Close Alpha ecosystem. So definitely don't miss out. Yeah, it's just a few short weeks away.
That's right. We're getting ready to go to Austin this next week. Gareth, are you going to be in Austin?
No, unfortunately not. I got to fly back to Florida, and we actually bought a house recently, so I got to do the move in and get all that taken care of. But Austin sounds, an awesome city. So very cool.
Moving is the worst. I've moved quite a bit. It's a blessing to be able to do it, like the action of buying a home and doing all. Okay, great, but the actually moving, whoa, you know what I mean? Definitely not fun. Hey, before the stream, 5:45 to 7:30. Make sure you check out your boy Frankie Candles. He's got the TA action going on over there as well. So make sure you check him out. He's over on BitBoy Crypto's channel. Don't miss it. So without further ado, I would normally ask Miguel what's on the podium this evening, but Miguel, I think we know what's on the podium. We got TA, right?
That's right.
Oh, okay. You were muted there. So let's dive right into it. Let me do an overview real quick on the market, just kind of a little peek, because we've had a little bit of movement. I think the market may or may not be green. Let's check it out. We've got the crypto market cap globally at 1.26 trillion with a T dollars, up 2.04% over the last day. So we are green. Bitcoin up over 30K. I think that's an important level. We'll talk that over a little bit more with Gareth this evening. That's up 2.3%, almost 4% on the week. ETH up 0.27, up a little bit over 1% on the week. Tether, still holding. No, it's just fine. It's just doing its normal little dance between 99.93 and $1. USDC holding strong at $1. BNB back up over 300. Cardano, which has been ripping recently. It's unfortunate that it's been ripping and it's at 58 cents, but hey, here we are. XRP at 40 cents. And then rounding out the top 10 after BUSD would be Solana and Dogecoin. And I actually have a quick question. Miguel, is Solana back up and running? I don't know the answer.
Yeah, I think they were only down for like 4 hours. I believe it was only like 4 hours, like that. Only 4 hours. It's only like the, I think, seventh or 10th time it happens this year alone. Yeah, man, they just keep dropping off.
Can I ask you guys a question about this? So is Solana just getting more and more popular that they can't handle it, or are they just not fixing the error that caused it to go down the last 6 times?
I think it's a big mixture of both. I think it's one, they talk about scalability, but they're not really that scalable, and they're having issues, and they're blaming it on bots jumping into the blockchain and bogging it down. And I'm sure that they're not optimizing when they fix it. They're just putting a band-aid over the issue, and then they're saying we're good to go, guys, until it happens again.
Yeah, and then I will say this, and I don't know if this has anything to do with it. I am not the technical guy here as it relates to back-end technicals of a blockchain, but I also know that Solana has got more and more popular with their NFTs. And as we talked about the other night, the optimization of the contracts within these ecosystems really can bog down. So in response to that, Gareth, depending on that, I believe that could seriously affect what's happening in the ecosystem as well. So
Gotcha.
I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But let's dive into it. Let's check out what the charts are doing. Gareth, what is going on in the charts? Let's check it out.
So kind of a
we had a move up to the 30 and then we dropped right back down. Was that
yeah, I mean, I think that's the bottom line here, is that literally you have this tight range that we've been in for the last 2-3 weeks now.
What are you on? Is that a day? Is that a daily that you're zoomed out on right now?
Yes, this is a daily Bitcoin chart, correct? Yeah. So I mean, basically, we were sticking in this range. You kind of came up here, you came down, you bounced, you kind of hammered on this lower level. It held, and then it looked so optimistic just a few days ago when we surged above this line. We closed above. We got this pause candle right here, and then it just gave it all back yesterday and kind of put us back in this channel. So I'm still slightly very near-term bullish on Bitcoin. I do think that there's too many bears out there right now. There's a tendency when any sort of asset gets too many bears, price action will go in the opposite direction until that mitigates a little bit. And also the charts continue to hold this lower level. So you have a level at 28,700 right here, and then this lower channel line, which is just such an impressive channel. You can see it hit here. It hit here, and then it pierced here on that UST panic, the Terra Luna debacle, and it held. So that's really your line in the sand. Like for me, I'm long Bitcoin here. I only about a 12% position in my portfolio, so it's not a lot. But
you're long from where? Like, show me the
30,
point
30,
at which you
30,000, yeah.
From 30K. Okay, I want to ask.
Yeah, so I basically, when it came down to this lower level, I bought. I was down a little bit on the initial flush, then I was in the money, and it's kind of just been going in and out of the money for me, recently here. But again, I'm going to stick with that because as long as we hold this down sloping trend line, that's kind of the line in the sand. If that gives way, then that would be something where I'd start to think we're going to 20,000 if that gives way. As long as it holds, I'm rolling the dice, and I think you get an up move to maybe 34.5, 35, maybe 38,000. Midterm, I'm still bearish. We haven't seen the washout that needs to happen yet in crypto. We started to see it with Terra Luna and UST, but it's got to be more. It's got to happen to more coins out.
Can you zoom in on the smaller area of trend lines real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. So for those of you that are newer to trading, let's say, Gareth, we've got a number of people that are trying to really learn this. If you were doing what we call breakout trading, let's go back 4 days or even 5 days. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, right there. So you go into that trade. We basically recently, the day before, it bounced off of the bottom. Let's say it bounces off the bottom. You see the bounce start to happen. You say, you know what, I'm gonna long there, right? That next candle breaks up through. Are you then saying, hey, there's the break, or are you waiting a whole nother day generally for that next candle to see that it actually holds? Because it looks like we had a spinning top after that. So how would you look at that?
Yeah, so the way I was looking at it is you got the close above, which is like step one. So breakouts are 3-step processes, and what you're really looking for is you don't want to get caught with an institutional game, and institutions love this type of play where they'll take a chart above a level and then get everyone to jump in thinking it's a breakout, right? So think about how many Bitcoiners saw this, right? And they were like, oh, it broke out, and they jump long, and then it's like pause candle, reversal, take their money and say thank you very much. So what I like to do is I use what's called the confirmation signal. And what that is basically, this was your first close above that line. I need to see a close above the high of that candle, which will then confirm it, right? So the high of that candle is right there. I look for kind of what would be called a confirmation candle breakout.
The high of the wick. The high of the wick. The high of the wick is what you're looking at.
The highest point on the candle, it has to be above. Yeah.
Okay.
And that basically, what I found is that institutions are only going to commit so much money to reversing the move, and the longer it stays and the higher it goes, it's going to attract more money on the long side. They can only fight the battle with a limited amount of money, right? They're not going to put themselves in a position to lose $1 billion to make 100 million. So usually if you get that close above, now you have a legitimate breakout. now it's off to the races. We didn't get that, and we got that spinning top, just like you said. And then, unfortunately, a reversal real quick. I was disappointed because I was still hoping, like, okay, well, sideways candle, maybe you start making a bull flag and then can break up. And it just, I mean, it just kind of ripped our hearts out in that respect. So doesn't mean it won't happen. We could easily go back and finally confirm, but watch, if you do confirm, watch the move you get after that. It's a legitimate breakout at that point.
Okay. Yeah, I see so many different ways of looking at charts, but it seems like when I hear people talk about breakouts, there's a couple little nuances as where people want to see like a full day of, you know, retesting the top of the last channel, or are they retesting the top of where the last candle closed? And I know it's just like anything else with TA, there people are going to look at things differently, but I was just kind of curious how you would normally look at that.
And I think it's important for investors and traders to recognize that emotion is what drives, especially the retail crowd. So institutions, when they're looking to make money, are going to try to exploit that, right? So they're going to try to play on your greed and your fear. So when you had the Terra Luna debacle down here and it was below this trend line, you had so many people just throwing in the towel and saying, I'm done. And what happens? We go right back up. The same thing right here. You have buyers coming in. The emotion starts to say, oh, this is going to be the big breakout. We're going to go start ripping higher. And they like to just reverse that on you. So you really have to be sure it's a real breakout before you commit, in my opinion. Otherwise, you know, it's scary. I mean, they have these algorithms even built to kind of do these kind of games, and it's shark infested waters, no doubt about it.
Yeah, no doubt. Want to just take a quick second to thank, let's see, we had Shambles and Crypto Billy tossing out some super chats. We appreciate you guys always supporting the channel. So thank you guys very much for that. Miguel.
Yeah.
You've been doing any trading recently?
No, I haven't. I've been busy with a bunch of other stuff, like the smart contracts for our NFT project.
Good point.
So you said you were bullish short term, but maybe bearish long term. So where are you thinking that Bitcoin might top off at and then start heading back down?
Yeah, so I think your minimum upside is only, unfortunately, like 33,000. We kind of already kissed that. So my guess is you have this level here, which is this low pivot, which is around 34.5. I'm optimistic that if we start to get a little bit of a momentum move, we can go here, which would be around 37.5, 38,000. Also, if you do a trend line down here, you kind of get to that same level. So one of the things in TA that we always look for is that when two trend lines merge, that's always going to be a more powerful level of resistance or support. So in this case, if we did get up here, this might be even a shortable level in terms of resistance for Bitcoin. But yeah, I mean, at this stage of the game, I mean, you know, you still have to break out of this channel. The reason why I'm slightly bullish is just because it's a risk reward assessment. If you know you have this white trend line down here that's protecting you, and you have this one, and this white one is the big, I mean, this is the big kahuna right here. This is the epic channel here that we've hit here, and we keep, I mean, the bounces, the size of these bounces are huge off this line. So I'm going with that because I have the protection below, and I understand that if it breaks, then I just stop out. And I, you know, maybe take a $4,000 loss, not the end of the world, you know, 10, 15% type exit strategy there.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested to see, we've got so many people calling for, and I'd like to hear from Miguel and you, Gareth. We've got so many people calling for what many would say is not just a recession. We've had people talking about an all-out depression. But I've heard a number of different people say, you know, listen, if you think you've seen a down market, if you think you've seen the markets get crushed before, you've seen nothing yet. And I think it's scary. I think that it's something that at the same time, though, if you've been doing a lot of what you've talked to us about, Gareth, what Miguel and I talk about, if you've been setting yourself up in a position to still have some dry powder on the side, dollar cost average when the prices are down, I think you're setting yourself up, obviously not financial advice, this is for entertainment purposes only. I think you've been setting yourself up to be able to buy these stupid low numbers. There's a lot of stocks right now as well. We don't talk about stocks that much, but there's a number of stocks right now that were at, I think it was like Snapchat was at like $85, and now it's down at like 9, 10, 11, 12 bucks. So there's actually some big movement all over the place. Miguel, I want to start with you. What are you thinking of when you hear all of this greater macroeconomic fears and whatnot?
Man, I think that, you know, people calling for all these events to happen and people calling black swan events, I think we're kind of it's the opposite. It's not a black swan event, and that's all we're expecting. I think it starts to slowly bake into the price a little bit, into what we're currently seeing, and things might not drop as low as people think it will, just because sentiment, it's the sentiment that everybody thinks is going to keep going lower, and that's when everything starts going the opposite way. I do think we're going to see a lower side of things with inflation, and we're going to see the whole depression situation, and all the food shortages and different things that we're talking about. But I think it might not be long lived if it becomes this huge thing where everyone is expecting it to happen any day now, and we start seeing a recovery. But I could be wrong. We could be expecting it. It might be even worse than we expected.
Yeah. Drop a yes or a no in the chat. Yes, if you like the free mint that we're doing, that Danger Close is doing. Drop a no if you don't like the free mint. Drop that into the chat, guys. We'd appreciate your feedback.
Yeah, we got to vote. We got to vote in the chat, so you guys can just click on the yes.
Oh, did you put the vote?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. I didn't see that. Gareth, what are your thoughts on what Miguel was just talking about as it relates to where we're looking macroeconomic wise?
Yeah, I think that eventually we will see some sort of depression type scenario. In my trading career, I've found that it always takes longer to get there than everyone thinks, right? So if you go back to like in 2005, 2006, we could all recognize the housing bubble, the financial kind of craziness that was going on, but it really took till 2008 to collapse. Same thing in the 90s, right? Alan Greenspan called the tech bubble then irrational exuberance in 1995, and the tech bubble didn't top out till 2000. So he was 5 years earlier, and that was the Fed chairman at the time, right? So I think it's important to recognize that the Fed is definitely going to be tied a little bit. They can't print the same amount of money with inflation where it is. I think that's becoming more and more unpopular now that people are feeling the effects of price hikes and gasoline and all these other things that they're having to pay for. But at the same time, they still will have some methods to stimulate, whether it's through foreign markets or other means. So I do think we will get to a point where we have some sort of depression. And one thing that's interesting is you always hear that every generation has to experience like a Great Depression, right? And if you think about it, the last one was in the late 20s, early 30s. There's not a lot of people anymore that have experienced a real Great Depression. And so we're kind of setting up for that. The other thing that's kind of interesting is you do have the 100-year cycle, which is a pretty powerful cycle. Interestingly enough, you had the Spanish flu, right, in the kind of the 1918-ish area. And then in 2018, really 2019, we started to get into COVID in 2020. Well, 2020 more so. But the point is, again, that's the 100-year cycle, and you had a virus, right, that really decimated the world back then and did so this time as well. So it makes sense that I would say if we're looking at the Great Depression-ish type thing, probably late this decade, maybe in the late 20s again, and it might coincide with that 100-year cycle. But I don't see how it's avoidable, right? You have this constant kind of keeping the patient alive by fake means, right? Just giving them injections of whatever. And that's the economy I'm talking about from the Federal Reserve and the government. And eventually the patient just keels over, right? I mean, they can only live so long before you have to do that flush out. So I think it has to happen. It's healthy to happen. It wouldn't be. This is the other important thing is cycles are you naturally have an expanding cycle and a retraction cycle. The Fed has artificially kept us from having big recessions or any recession really. Because as soon as, you look at COVID, they came in with gangbuster money. And it's not healthy, right? It's cycles like the seasons. You go through every season, every year. You kind of have this natural thing to it. And when you don't allow that to happen, it builds up this kind of pressure that eventually has to give way. And we kind of saw that in 2008, 2009 with the mortgage crisis and everything that happened there. And I do think we have to go through that again. So I think as investors, you have to be more aware of that, be protective. I love what you guys are doing with your NFT and everything and prepping and everything like that. I think that's smart to do. But yeah, I think it will eventually come.
Yeah, I think that also the idea that we're just going to go up and to the right forever, which let's be fair, anyone that is newer to these markets, if you got in, 2019, and especially right at 2020, right after the COVID crash, if you got in at that point and you took advantage of that opportunity, I know I did, but I was in, years prior to that, but I took advantage of that as well. But if you were just getting in at that point, think about how that must feel. You would feel almost like a freaking genius, right? Well, there's only so many financial genius. I hate to listen, there's 216 people in here. I'm really sorry to tell you all. Listen, I'm going to even put myself on the list. We're not all financial geniuses, right? It can't happen like that, because think about it. When somebody wins, somebody has to lose. And there was so much on a large scale, right? There was so much just winning going on. People would, I promise you, and I think you obviously, you two know this, but for anyone in the chat that wasn't around for this, past the COVID crash, you could blindfold yourself and put a dartboard in front of you and literally pick a stock or a cryptocurrency and toss the dart at the board without even knowing what you're going to hit. And there was a very good chance you were going to make money. And what it does is it instills this false sense of confidence and well-being. The reality is these markets do, whenever you hear people say, I used to hate it when I'd hear people say, oh, this is healthy. Well, you know what? It is. People cannot just throw money into anything and everything and just make money. It doesn't work like that. And so I think that the corrections, unfortunately, it's going to shake a lot of people out. I saw a chart that showed that 85 or 90% of people that got in between 2020 and now in the retail side have now sold their bags in the crypto space because of between this last drop and the May drop prior to that, if of last year or whatever. I think it's interesting. That stuff needs to happen for us to be able to grow long term. And that's why we talk about patience is the way to win this game. Patience.
Yeah, you're 100% right, and it's true that even in the great, the COVID collapse in the markets, it came back so fast that it gave people that false sense of security, where it's like, oh well, if it drops 30%, it'll be back up to the highs in a month, so who cares, and that's not the way bear markets work. Bear markets, at least in the stock market, can last years, and that's more normal, and it will just eat away at you. I mean, when you see your account day after day down 30, 40, 50, 60%, and it's that way for years, it gets depressing to the point where people do throw in the towel and kind of just say, all right, I've had enough. So, just be careful. I think that's the bottom line, is that you should only be trading with money that you can afford to lose. And if you have a long-term view, then at least you can say, okay, I have the long-term view, but then you can't get whipped out at the lows.
Do you think we're going to go into a long-term bear market with the stock market and the crypto market? Or do you think that it might be in a long-term bear market, but the crypto market maybe might break out from that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I do think that eventually the crypto market, at least specific cryptos like Ethereum and Bitcoin, become a safe haven. They just have to get to a realistic price where big money really starts to think of them like that. And I think you're starting to see that a little, but you're not quite there yet. But I do think that a lot of the cryptos out there, anything past the top 30 maybe, I mean, there's a question of why are they needed? What are they needed for? Is it a valid reason that they should survive? And yeah, I think that's what's going to come out of it, is that some of them won't, or a lot of them won't. But yeah, I think that the crypto market will eventually mature into a gold type market, of safety, offsetting the dollar printing and all that stuff.
So I have a question for you, Gareth. Somebody just said, I'm going to pull this comment up here because I think it's a great comment. But then Cowan, he's talking about Benjamin Cowan, talks about cycles expanding and diminishing returns. So he could be wrong. Here's what I want to say. I have been all over the idea for a while, and talked to Ben, talked to BitBoy about this, talked to Miguel about this. I might have talked to you about this. But when people look back at the charts and they keep saying these percentages, I think I actually asked you this maybe on Around the Blockchain, or said something about this. I feel as if there is a difference moving from 10K to 2K, and that being an 80% drop, versus moving from 100. I'm just using a fictitious number here, versus moving from 100K to 20K, the amount of capital that has to make that happen. And so what will happen as the markets continue to grow and grow and grow, theoretically, is you have what's called diminishing returns. It takes more and more and more money to be able to get the percentages up higher and higher and higher and higher. And consequently, that works on the bottom side too. So I'm interested to see, what does that look like as these markets? So we're having a correction right now. very likely an opportunity for people to get in on some of the longer term action. But if they're expecting, this is just my opinion, if they're expecting these absolutely insane returns, they better do something soon. And what I mean by soon is before this next bull market, because I feel that as if that after this next bull market, it's not going to be too late, but I think we're going to be approaching a stock market-esque society as it relates to crypto. You're just not going to have the ability to make the gains that people have made in the past. You believe that, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I do think so. So I think you will have a scenario where the higher like Bitcoin's price goes, it does take a huge amount of money to move it an equal 100% just because of the market cap at that point. So I think that's absolutely correct. But I think also you have this scenario where you have price. I mean, there's a certain amount of maturity that needs to occur in the crypto space that hasn't occurred yet. And that's keeping a lot of the big money out. And we have to be clear on this, is that when you have an asset like Bitcoin drop like it did, and then you have the UST scenario and the Terra Luna thing happen. I mean, there could have been a lot of big money that was kind of getting interested in getting in Bitcoin, and now they're like, all right, I'm not going near that because you have these scenarios. So I hate to say it, but UST and Terra Luna definitely set back crypto as a whole, probably months, if not a year. And there's a lot of people that have talked about this elongating cycles from 4 years to more, but I've always said is like, you have to show proof of that, right? And we don't have proof. As of now, it is 4-year cycles, and we have to just go with that until it's proven differently.
So you brought up Terra Luna, and I was actually discussing this with Nick. And basically, with Terra Luna and the debacle that is created right now, we see all this regulation in a rush because of Terra Luna. Do you think that the regulation that comes in after this Terra Luna situation, will it be more, will it dominate, or will it push institutions more into Bitcoin, and Bitcoin will become a more dominant force in the future? Or will institutions also take into the altcoins? Like, are they going to be more cautious of altcoins and just focus on Bitcoin, is what I'm trying to say? Or are they going to still want to, get into altcoins as much as they did before Terra Luna?
Yeah, I think for the most part, institutions have a very strict kind of risk assessment form. So for the most part, they're going to gravitate towards safer stuff, which in crypto is Bitcoin, Ethereum. So they'll allocate a majority of their money to those. But that doesn't stop. Like, there are plenty of institutions in the stock market that will invest smaller amounts in these kind of what would be considered the smaller altcoins that could do a 10 times or a 50 times type thing. So I always think there'll be some money that will be interested in that kind of thing. But I certainly, honestly, I'm begging for regulation. I know that sounds sacrilege in crypto space, but if you really want, like, if people want Bitcoin to recover and go higher, the only way that's going to happen is if you get regulation where things like the UST and Terra Luna don't occur again. Or if it does occur, at least investors get protected, like an FDIC insurance type scenario. So I hope they get regulation out. I think the regulation is absolutely key to the bear market ending.
Yeah, I think that Bitcoin and some of the other cryptos that are going to succeed need to move away from being so much of a speculative asset. Okay, the whole crypto market right now is speculation. You can look at projects that have absolutely ripped, and then if you say, "Oh, well, like fundamentally, what has happened on that blockchain?" and you look at it, and you're like, "Well, they've put out some really good news articles, and yeah, well, they were on this person's show, and you know what I'm saying?" And so what I think, obviously Bitcoin doesn't fall into that. ETH doesn't fall into that, but there are fundamental problems with different projects, including my girl ETH, right? And those things need to be, they need to change. And I think that that's going to do nothing but take time. The regulation side, I struggle with, because I believe and agree with you, Gareth, that we do need that to happen to legitimize it. We do need that to happen to bring even more of these institutions in. But it's a double-edged sword, because the first thing is, you want the institutions there for all the money. Well, guess what? They'll bring the money. They'll also bring the freaking games. And the games are where people get so frustrated and then talk about the manipulation, right? You'll hear us talking about, well, wait a minute. It's not like everybody woke up on this random Saturday morning and just started doing this or that or whatever. No, it's the institutions. Well, you asked for them to be here, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, we want our cake and eat it too. We want the extra money to dump in, but we don't want the volatility. Well, the volatility, as I understand it, will come even maybe ramped up a little bit sometimes at particular times because of these institutions. But I have a question, Gareth. As far as protection for the investors, you mentioned FDIC insurance.
Yeah.
I look at FDIC insurance as a little bit different because they are, well, first of all, we're fractional reserve banking system, so they're not really even protecting our funds anyway. But it used to be that FDIC was like, hey, if somebody walked into the bank, if somebody somehow got a hold of your account with X amount of dollars, whatever, up to 250, I feel like we don't need the regulators, the regulating bodies to come and hold our hand to protect us from our stupid selves. I feel like the educational side of thing needs to change. And if you want to get into crypto, get yourself educated. Is there a balance there though? Is there something that you feel like they could do as it relates to, insurance? Because there is some insurance options now, which I've seen not too recently, but I've seen it. Is there some sort of a balance that we can find there?
Yeah, so I definitely think there is. So I think, and I agree with you. I mean, the regulation, it's a double-edged sword. It absolutely is. But I think there's like stupid is as stupid does, where some people, they probably, you just can't, when you do stuff, you have to be aware of what you're doing. Personal responsibility. I'm a huge believer in that. And then there's other scenarios like where, I think I told you guys about it the last time, like where I had my SIM card jacked and someone literally just went into a T-Mobile, but they went into a T-Mobile store and they basically pretended to be me. The guy switched over the SIM card. Like there was nothing I could have done in that scenario that I'm aware of to not have allowed that to happen. And then they got into one of my crypto accounts. Luckily, I hadn't funded that one yet. And they took all, I mean, it was just like a mess, man. It was like unraveling the worst, screw up in the world to try to get everything back in my name, because then they were getting all the authorization codes to my phone. Like, I mean, it was just nuts. So, I mean, there's definitely some things that can be done there. It's tricky. And then you were mentioning about the institutions creating more volatility. The only thing I would dare say about that is that if you look at like an Apple obviously $2.5 trillion asset right now. There's so many institutions that are just invested in Apple and they're not selling on the whim of a panic, that I think it actually stabilizes. So having institutions in there, yes, they're going to play games because, let's be honest, they need to make their quarterly numbers. But at the same time, having big money that's not going to get shaken out very easily is definitely, in my opinion, something that shouldn't be feared too much. You just have to figure out, again, that trend line where you have the balance of what gains versus stabilization.
Dude, 100% agree. I thought Nick was frozen for a minute there. 100% agree. Guys, by the way, smash the likes. We got 200 and something people in here. We only got 61 likes. Let's boost up those numbers, guys. Let's smash the likes. So, Gareth, I had a question for you. So, we're talking about Bitcoin, right? But let's talk a little bit about Ethereum. Where do you see Ethereum's price headed? Obviously, where Bitcoin moves, Ethereum moves as well, whether it's up or down. But what kind of price points do you see Ethereum hitting on the low side and maybe on the higher end in the next, short term, long term, whatever you want, feel most comfortable with?
Yeah, so Ethereum, definitely the big support level is this 1725, 1715 level. You can see that's where the low was on that big dump out, the big bounce. And then we actually traded down there just, a week ago. We held it, we bounced again. Now we're coming back in. So if you're looking for the level that it has to hold, you really need to see this low hold here. If that gives way, then you have the next stop would be right around 1550. And then the big support for me is around 1400. I think I said like a year ago that I thought it would retrace to 1400 at least. I still think it's going to go there. It's just a matter of when. The chart itself is not a great chart. You could make a case that you have a head and shoulders, shoulder, head and shoulder here. It's already broken that. So I think Ethereum, yes, you can get bounces. In fact, I have a small long position here. Same kind of thing as with Bitcoin. Basically, as long as it holds this low end of support, I think you can get a little bit of a bounce. But I'm concerned in the chart. The chart for me, it definitely speaks to potential further downside in the near term, at least to probably 1400.
Why?
Wow, 1,400. Holy smokes!
So yeah, so that's a decent move. Let's see, what are we at right now? Like 1800,
Believe it or not, it's
1900.
not that crazy because if you this trend line right up here is around 2,200 and we're at 1,800, so it'd just be that distance again to the downside. I mean, yes, in the
Right. I
scheme of,
mean,
we were at almost 5,000, and so that is a lot to the downside to 1,400. But it's really just a hop, skip, and a jump from here. Like one panic sell probably gets us down there, and then at some
One
point,
panic sell, we're done.
yeah, one rumor, one one manipulation, whatever it is.
but it's the truth, and I want to remind everybody in the chat. First of all, like Miguel said, smash the likes, jump into the Discord, follow Gareth, check out all of his socials. He's done a great job with TA. He's always coming on here, filling in whenever somebody's gone or just coming in to be a part. So Gareth, again, we appreciate you coming on. But so ETH. That a lot of you know, that's my girl. That's my biggest bag. I love ETH. I see a $1,400 ETH, and I see, we talk about this a lot, but I see huge opportunity. I see, man, is this going to get down that low, ever again? Right, the previous all-time high, I believe, before we moved was right about 1,400, so we'd be kind of retesting that. I see that as an opportunity. When you, Gareth, for you, I know you trade, but I also believe you have some long-term holds. When you set up these charts and you look at, let's just say what you're showing me right now, is there one of those lines where you are specifically saying, man, I'm adding to my long-term position on that one? And if so, is there a reason why?
Yeah, so I think number one is like the quality cryptos like an ETH or a Bitcoin. There are levels where I just start to slowly accumulate, and I'm looking to buy and accumulate large positions. I've been lucky enough to kind of have seen the past cycles in different assets, so I stayed away at 65,000. I was talking about it falling, and I've been on the sidelines except for quick swing trades. But if you're a believer like me that the Fed and the government can never get out of the amount of debt that we're in, and that the printing of money eventually will start again to bail us out of the next great collapse, then Bitcoin at some value becomes very, very interesting. So for like Bitcoin, anything 20,000 or below, I'm just putting out standard buy orders. Like every 3,000 down, I'll just put in another $25,000 or something like that, all the way down as low as it wants to go, because I believe in that longer term thesis. With Ethereum, same thing. I think that there is a use case and it's going to continue. They have some issues they have to fix. I don't like how high gas fees have gotten. I recently, I was given an NFT and I had to, basically do the gas fees. And at first it was like 70 or 80 or $100 in gas fees. And I'm like, wait, I'm getting this NFT for free and I got to pay like $100. That's ridiculous. Those have come down a huge amount, but I thought that was a little ridiculous. You have to get that fixed for sure. But with Ethereum, I think I start accumulating at 1,400. So 1,400, just like you said, you start buying, and then just be smart enough. Like so many investors pick a number and they're like, that's going to be the low. I just know it. And it's like, well, you really don't know. None of us know.
Right.
So leave some dry powder in case you're wrong, where you can dollar cost average down further. And always remember, and I've learned this the hard way, stocks, commodities, crypto, they're always going to go lower than you think, and they usually go higher than you think. So be prepared for that. Like in all fairness, don't be surprised if it's going to go lower down to 800. I mean, who knows? Just be ready if it does. Accumulate.
Yeah. No, I resonate with that a lot, and it was the times that the numbers just continued to go lower and lower and lower, all the way down to the 2020 crash, which I've told people a lot of times was the most I ever bought and took advantage of. But you're right, we don't know what this bottom is going to be. We might feel like we know. We might feel like we know how high it's going to go. That's the other side of it too, right? That's why we talk about patience. What happens if all of these numbers that people are talking about, what happens if people are talking about $1 million Bitcoin are not even in the hemisphere and we go to a $10 million Bitcoin or whatever? The reality is, especially with how we're printing money, who knows what 10 million is going to even be worth at that point. It'll be interesting to see, but I totally resonate with what you're saying. We don't know how low we're going. We don't know how high we're going. So if you're trading, trade whatever formula works for you. If you're not, or add that to kind of what your game plan is. If you're not trading, that's why we talk about dollar cost averaging. That's DCA, DCA, DCA. It works. Were you about to show us something on there, Gareth?
Oh, I just did some. I was just curious about from the lows in 2020 when we were down at like, 80, $90. The Fibonacci retrace to this high. So I was just interesting that we're kind of hovering around this 618 Fibonacci level. The next level would be down here about 1100 or so. So just, again, I always like to use the fibs because the fibs are something that occur in nature and it's powerful. If I've always been a believer in technical analysis, that if it occurs in nature naturally, then it impacts us as humans because we are part of the world, we're part of nature. Just like I'm a believer in some sort of lunar cycle effect, because if the moon can cause tides making up, more mass in the world than land, if it can cause those to go in and out, it has some impact on us as 80% water, right? We as humans are 80% water. So there's probably a small impact from the moon on us. And that could just influence, all it has to do is influence us a fraction. But when you have millions of investors being influenced in a fraction, it can cause a move in the markets, no doubt about it.
Yeah. Well, Gareth, thank you very much for coming on. We appreciate you as always, giving us that TA alpha. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Crypto fam, if you're not already subscribed to the Discord, jump in the Discord. If you're not in Gareth's private trading group, jump into his trading group. If you're not following us on Twitter or Gareth on Twitter, you guys know what this is, right? We need your support. That's why we're here. That's why we spend time in the evenings. That's why we spend time prior to get ready for this. We just appreciate you guys. And if nobody's told you before today, we love you. I love you. We hope you guys have a blessed evening. And just remember to question everything.
Trust nothing.
And until next time, hodl
like it's hot. And everybody, make sure that you're joining the Discord for the Twitter space tonight to get more information on the Danger Close Alpha free mint that is happening in a short few weeks. Make sure you join the space.
And we're giving away a fire starter tonight. We're giving a Purifier Tactical fire starter. So make sure that you guys are there. Twitter space tonight, 9 p.m. Thank you, Miguel.
All right, guys. See you there.
Have a good